Growing up, my Korean mother was not really one for telling me, "I love you." But I never doubted that she did. My mother had other love languages, like food. Every night, after a full day of work, Mom whipped up a multi-course Korean dinner, and she relished packing a healthy lunch for me each day, paying no heed to my embarrassment at being the only one with seaweed rolls instead of PB&J. She had another very Korean love language: cash incentives. $1 for every A on my report card, 50 cents for every slug I removed from her tomato garden. And on long, lazy summer days, she induced me and my sister to write books by paying us 10 cents for every page. I can thank Mom that I will finally have one published in a few weeks. But my mom's real love language, I don't know what you call it in Korean, but the Hebrew word for it is Tochecha. Tochecha does not have a natural English translation. It's usually defined as rebuke, which is a critical reprimand, a censure for failures, hurts, or mistakes. The etymology of rebuke is the Germanic word for thicket or brush that you would beat back or repel. So a rebuke is a verbal weed whacker wielded against undesirable behavior. But rebuke doesn't quite capture the spirit of Tochecha. Tochecha is not about pushing someone away. It's about drawing them close. Tochecha comes from the Hebrew root for offering proof or evidence. When you give Tochecha, it's more like holding up a mirror to someone so they can see evidence themselves of how they fell short. It's an act of intimacy and truth-telling. As I said, my mom was big on Tochecha. She set very high standards for me and my sister, and Tochecha was how she let me know when I was not living up to them. Now, this sometimes went down harder than her seaweed lunches, but I experienced it as love, nevertheless. Now, what does love or Tochecha have to do with this holiday of Yom Kippur? Pretty much everything. The Torah portion we read on Yom Kippur afternoon comes from Leviticus 19. It's known as the Holiness Code. On this holiest day of the year, this code instructs us with a series of commandments that help us live lives of holiness. And at the very center of this portion is arguably the most famous verse in the entire Torah, also known as the Golden Rule. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. But how exactly do we express this love for our neighbor? We get some instruction from the verse immediately before. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. Do not hate your kinsman in your heart. You shall surely rebuke him and incur no sin because of him. This verse, commanding us to give Tochecha, placed right before the verse that says, love your neighbor, teaches us that Judaism also understands Tochecha as a love language. The Talmudic rabbi, Yossi Bar Chanina, goes so far as to say, a love without Tochecha is no love. Now, I'm guessing for many of you, this is the first time you've ever even heard this Jewish concept of Tochecha. And now your rabbi is arguing that you can't even have love without it? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. We are all seeing what happens in a society that doesn't know how to give Tochecha, where we are afraid to draw close to tell someone the truth, where relationships feel so fragile that they can't tolerate critique, or we think it's not our business to weigh in. It's their life. Who am I to intrude? But we are commanded to love our neighbors, and to love sometimes means to give Tochecha. Because if you're disappointed or hurt or angry, feeling someone did something they shouldn't, or is not doing what they should, or perhaps not living up to their potential, and we say nothing to them, that's not love. It's giving up. It's deciding they can't do any better. Too often, relationships fall apart over this. 1 in 4 Americans today is estranged from a close family member. I'm sure all of us feel distant from someone we once called a good friend, colleague, mentor. Tohaka takes courage and care, but we cannot live lives of holiness without it. Our Torah not only instructs us how to give tochacha, it teaches us how to do it properly. The opening of the verse says, "Do not hate your kinsman, achicha, in your heart." From the word ach, brother. Classical commentators emphasize the primary obligation for rebuke is our kin, our family, friends, community. Because tochacha presumes a relationship and some sense of obligation. We generally don't give our enemies tochacha. We can protest, reproach, or campaign against them, but tochacha is an act of love for achicha, for your people. But not everyone deserves the love language of tochacha. The 16th century Rabbi Kli Yakar explicitly exempts 3 categories of people: the wicked, the idiots, and the mockers. He draws from the book of Proverbs, which warns, "Do not rebuke a mocker. He will just hate you. But rebuke a wise person, and he will love you." In other words, only rebuke someone who is decent enough, open enough to really take it in. Otherwise, it might make things worse. But when you give tochacha to someone with wisdom and humility, your words can engender greater closeness, greater trust, and love. Now, the first verse of the phrase also says, "Do not hate your brothers in your heart, bil vavecha." What are you keeping inside? Not saying to your friends or your families? What has made you feel hate? Do they even have any idea what you're upset about, why you're disappointed or hurt? This command reminds us we can't just keep it all inside. We must be willing to brave the difficult truths. Which brings us to the next words of that verse, hocheach tochiach. Those are 2 variations of the word tochacha. Whenever you see a word doubled in Hebrew like this, it's the Torah's way of expressing emphasis. Think of it as a grammatical underline. Hocheach tochiach. You must surely rebuke. Giving tochacha is not a suggestion. It's a command. There are pragmatic reasons to give tochacha: to prevent harm, to correct injustice, to restore trust. But the deeper Jewish reason is this: we believe people can change. That is the beating heart of Yom Kippur. If teshuvah, return, is possible, tochacha is a handrail that guides someone along the path. And what is more loving than helping someone return to their best selves? The final clause in the verse is essential. Do not incur sin because of him. Now, the rabbis interpret this warning in 2 ways. First, if we stay silent in the face of someone's wrongdoing and we do not offer tochacha, then we incur sin. Second, if you give tochacha the wrong way, if you shame or humiliate, if you offer it when it cannot be received, or you cause more harm through your rebuke, then your tochacha becomes its own sin. Offering tochacha is not easy. Our tradition has long recognized that doing it properly is like walking a tightrope. Maybe it's not surprising that even 2,000 years ago, the Talmud records Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah complaining, saying, "I would be surprised if there is anyone in this generation who knows how to give tochacha properly." I guess we're not the only ones. So is there any way to get it right? Well, our people have never stopped trying. And this Yom Kippur, I want to offer 4 rules for giving Tohaka as an expression of love, distilled from centuries of rabbinic commentary and decades of personal experience with my mother, so that we might give Tohaka without incurring more sin for which we would have to atone today. Rule number 1, know thyself. The first person Tohaka must address is oneself. Hasidic masters teach when we notice a flaw in another, it's often a mirror reflecting our own rough edges. Before we confront someone else, we should ask, why does it bother me? Is it about their action or my insecurity or my flaws? The 19th century rabbi known as Chafetz Chaim says, rebuke must be free of personal anger or insult. Otherwise, it's not for the sake of heaven. Musar, which is the Jewish mindfulness tradition, demands a cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of the soul first, so that our rebuke emerges from humility, not ego. Rule number 2, timing is everything. Never give tochacha when the person is flooded with grief, shame, fear, or when you are. We cannot give reproof when someone is already spiraling or at a heightened fight or flight mode. Sometimes tochacha just has to wait. The Talmud instructs, quote, just as it's a mitzvah to offer tochacha when it will be heated, so is it a mitzvah to not give tochacha when it cannot be heated. Rule number 3, location, location, location. Never give tochacha in public. Humiliation is a cousin of violence in Jewish law. It's compared to spilling blood. The moment you add an audience to your reproach, whether 3 friends at a dinner table or 3,000 followers online, the conversation stops being about growth and starts being about power. This is what the Torah verse warns against when it says, do not bring sin upon yourself. When you're ready to offer tochacha and they're ready to hear it, close the door, sit face to face, draw close. Rule number 4, show, don't tell. Show, don't tell is not just a principle for good writing, but for good tochacha. Sometimes the right story or the right question is the best way to hold up a mirror to someone. The prophet Nathan employs this method when he gives King David the most dramatic example of tochacha in the Hebrew Bible. King David has just committed the most grievous sins. I'll remind you. He spied beautiful Bathsheba bathing on the roof, and despite knowing that she was married, he slept with her and then sent her husband to the front lines of battle to be killed. Nathan, who was the king's advisor, feels compelled to reprimand David for what he has done. But how do you rebuke an almighty king? Very carefully. There once was a rich man who had everything, he tells King David, and a poor man who has only a single lamb that he loves so much that she eats at his table, drinks from his cup, and sleeps in his bed. When a traveler comes to town, the rich man prepares a feast for him, but instead of taking from his extensive flocks, he steals the poor man's only lamb. David stops Nathan and exclaims, "The rich man deserves to die." And then Nathan turns the mirror on David. You are that man. Nathan's parable disarms David's defenses, enabling him to respond, "Chatati, I have sinned." This story shows a direct connection between Tochecha and Teshuvah and reminds us why we read from this holiness code on Yom Kippur. You might even imagine this Day of Atonement as the day on which God offers us Tochecha. We chant a catalog of ways that we've fallen short as we beat our chest to all hate, not because God enjoys listing all of our faults, but because God believes that we are strong enough to face them and capable of improving. God does not single us out individually or humiliate us. We confess in unison to preserve our dignity and to engage in our own self-reflection in the safety of a community all trying to do the same. On Yom Kippur, God's Tochecha is not meant to push us away, but to draw us close, to invite us to return, to make teshuvah. Tochecha is the ultimate act of God's love. So as we sit in prayer and contemplation this holiday, consider where love is calling you to courage. Consider the relationships in your life, a friend, a colleague, a family member, and how a story, a question, a gentle rebuke offered at the right time, in the right place, and with thoughtful intention could draw someone back, inspire repair, or change a life, maybe even yours. If we can give Tochecha like that, if we can love like that, then our Tochecha will not be a thicket that repels, but a mirror that reveals. It will not be a blow. It will be a blessing. It will be, as the Torah commands, a path to holiness itself. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, לרעך כמוך, כמוך. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, לרעך כמוך, כמוך. How would the world look? How might our days be lighter? How could the heart feel? How might the lens get wider if we loved like that? Really loved like that. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, לרעך כמוך, כמוך. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, לרעך כמוך, כמוך. Could be saved. How might the world be softer? Who could your heart